I never thought a quiet Thursday evening could feel like it was holding its breath, until I saw her standing in the doorway. Her hair, streaked with silver at the temples, caught the warm glow of the kitchen light. Mid-40s, she carried herself like she had seen enough of life to recognize fleeting moments when they mattered most. My heart thudded, probably too loudly, and I told myself to look anywhere but at her face. But of course, I didn't listen. "Hey," she said softly, almost hesitant. There was a pause, the kind that stretches longer than it should. Her eyes held something I couldn't name, something patient and dangerous at once. I swallowed, fumbling with the glass I had been holding. My hand shook slightly. "Hey," I managed. My voice sounded smaller than usual, and I hated that she noticed. She did notice. She always noticed. The house smelled faintly of baked bread, and the coffee she always left for herself, even if she hadn't expected company. I leaned against the counter, watching her move. She walked slowly, deliberately, like she was savoring something that should never be rushed. Her fingers brushed the edge of the countertop, and I wanted to reach out, but I didn't. That would be too forward. Her gaze flicked toward me again, and I caught the hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Not a full smile, just the kind that makes your chest tighten because it feels meant only for you. I've waited for this moment," she said suddenly. Her voice was low, steady, but there was a tremor, just enough to make me wonder if she was telling the truth or testing me. I froze. The glass slipped from my hand, shattering softly on the floor. She flinched and then bent down, moving closer to help me, and for a heartbeat, our hands brushed. Just the tips of our fingers, but it was electric. My stomach flipped in a way I hadn't felt before. I didn't mean," I stammered, looking at her face, memorizing the lines that had nothing to do with age but everything to do with life. She didn't flinch from me, didn't pull back. She just looked, and that look, it made me dizzy. "I know," she said quietly, straightening up. Her eyes didn't leave mine. "You don't have to explain anything." The clock ticked, the kitchen too quiet except for our breathing. My mind raced. This was her, my friend's mom. A woman who was meant to be untouchable, untangled from my world of 20-year-old reckless certainty. And yet, right now, she felt as necessary to me as air. I noticed the way her cardigan fell around her shoulders, soft and inviting. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, nervously maybe, or maybe deliberately. My pulse sped, my thoughts scattered, and I realized I couldn't leave. Not now, not when she was here, in the soft amber light, looking at me like I had been missing from her life all along. Something in the air shifted. A sound cut through the suspended moment. A sharp, unexpected chime from the front doorbell. My heart leapt, and she turned her head, startled, yet there was a tension in her jaw I couldn't read. I didn't move, didn't speak. We just stared, the silence heavier now, charged. And in that instant, I knew everything was about to change. The doorbell had barely faded when she moved toward the living room, her steps quiet, deliberate. I followed, though I knew I shouldn't. Every rational part of me screamed that this was wrong, that my friend's mom was untouchable, sacred somehow. But some irrational, stubborn part of me had already crossed the line before I even realized. She paused by the sofa and glanced at a framed photo on the wall, her and my friend, grinning in the park last summer. The corners of her mouth twitched. "He's changed a lot since then," she said softly, more to herself than to me. Then her eyes met mine, sharp and questioning. "Do you still talk to him?" I hesitated, trying to gather words that wouldn't make me sound like a fool. Sometimes not enough. My gaze lingered on the frame, pretending that the memory of her son's laughter could mask what I actually wanted, her attention, her presence. She sighed, letting herself sink into the sofa, and I noticed the faint crease at the corner of her eyes, the kind that comes from a life spent worrying about others more than oneself. "I didn't expect you here tonight," she murmured. Her hands folded neatly in her lap, yet the way she shifted, almost imperceptibly toward me, betrayed her own nervous energy. I wanted to ask her why she waited, why she had said what she said, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I sat on the edge of the armchair opposite her, my fingers fidgeting with the hem of my shirt. I could feel her eyes on me, patient, testing. You know, she started, voice low, hesitant. I've been alone a lot since my marriage ended. I didn't think I'd feel something like this again. Not for someone so much younger. Her eyes darted down for a moment, and I saw the flash of vulnerability I hadn't expected, a woman who had built walls around her heart and was now letting me peek inside, just a little. My chest tightened. I wanted to tell her it didn't matter to me, that I didn't care about the age gap, about the risks. But my voice felt small, like it would shatter if I tried. Instead, I said nothing, just let the silence stretch. The unspoken tension between us was louder than any words could be. She reached for a throw pillow and clutched it briefly, then set it aside, her fingers brushing against mine as she did. The touch was fleeting, accidental, yet my pulse spiked, my mind replaying it over and over. You used to come here a lot, she said finally, a trace of a smile on her lips. When you were younger, you'd help in the garden, chase your friend around. She trailed off, her gaze softening. I laughed quietly, the sound strange in the charged air. I remember. You let me climb the old oak tree, even though I nearly broke a leg. Her smile widened, just a little, and for a second, the world outside the room didn't exist. Just us, and memories, and the dangerous quiet that made my chest ache. I wanted to reach out, to close the gap, but didn't. She could feel it, though she always could. And so we sat there, separated by a few inches but closer than either of us dared to admit, sharing the space between us like a secret. The knock on the door came just as the clock ticked past 9. My stomach lurched. I hadn't heard anyone mention visitors tonight. Neither of us moved at first, her hand lingering near the edge of the sofa, mine halfway to my lap. Who? She whispered, and I could feel her tension ripple through the air. Before she could answer, the door creaked open. It was my roommate, grinning like he hadn't a care in the world. Hey man, you left your hoodie at my place again, he said, holding up a crumpled sweatshirt. I froze. The proximity of him, the sudden intrusion, made my face hot. My eyes flicked to hers. She bit her lower lip, subtle, but I noticed, every micro-gesture felt magnified. Thanks, I muttered, stepping forward, feeling the distance between us collapse. She subtly shifted back, yet not completely, and that half-step was more intimate than it should have been. My roommate didn't linger long, thankfully, and left with a casual, catch you later. The door clicked shut, but the tension didn't leave. If anything, it thickened, like the air itself was charged. We stayed still for a long beat. I wanted to reach for her again, but I also wanted to flee, part of me screaming that this was wrong. She let out a soft sigh, almost a whisper, and tilted her head toward me. You're different now, she said. Her fingers brushed against mine again, just briefly, like testing a current. I don't know what that means, I replied, heart hammering. My words sounded hollow even to me. You do, she said, a tremor in her voice betraying the calm she tried to hold. She leaned slightly closer, eyes not leaving mine. I could smell her, faint lavender, the warmth of skin and coffee lingering together, and my rational thoughts scattered. I wanted to kiss her. God, I wanted it. But the moment teetered between longing and guilt, and I pulled my hand back slightly, awkwardly. She noticed, and her lips parted like she was about to speak, but stopped. Maybe we shouldn't. I started, but didn't finish. Her eyes softened. Maybe. The word hung between us, unfinished, heavy with everything we weren't saying. And yet, somehow, the air felt electric, every suppressed impulse magnified. I glanced toward the photo of her son again, the reminder of why this was wrong. She caught my look, and I saw the flicker of the same guilt mirrored in her expression. Neither of us moved, yet both of us leaned imperceptibly closer. A sudden noise from outside, a car door slamming, made me jump. She laughed softly, a nervous, breathy sound, and brushed her fingers along the back of my hand. Barely, almost accidental. My chest tightened. We were dangerously close. We were pretending to resist, but every glance, every micro-gesture pulled us nearer, as if gravity itself had decided we couldn't escape. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat was dry. And then, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, froze, and I caught the flash of panic in her eyes before she hid it, slipping the device into her pocket. A text, maybe, or a call, someone threatening the fragile bubble we had created. I swallowed. The room felt smaller now, charged with everything we wanted to say but didn't. And for the first time, I realized that tonight, nothing would stay simple. The house was quiet again, but the quiet felt heavier this time, like the air itself was holding its breath. She stood near the kitchen counter, arms crossed, eyes darting to the window as though expecting someone, or maybe something, to appear. I wanted to reach for her, but I stayed rooted to the spot, every instinct screaming that I was already in too deep. "You're hard to read," I finally muttered, my voice breaking the silence. She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze lingered on mine, steady but trembling at the edges. "You think that's hard?" she whispered. Then, louder, almost bitterly, "Try being me. Every day, trying to act like the world hasn't changed, like you're not the one I keep thinking about." My chest tightened. That one sentence carried years of restraint, of longing and guilt compressed into words she barely let out. I could feel the pull between us, electric and undeniable, and I knew I wasn't supposed to feel this way, and yet I couldn't stop. I shouldn't," I began, but she cut me off with a quiet laugh that sounded like it was holding back tears. "Shouldn't what?" she challenged, stepping closer. Her presence was suffocating in the best way, and my pulse spiked. "You think I don't know? That I haven't noticed you, standing here, looking at me like you can't breathe without me?" Her words hit me harder than any cautionary thought ever could. My mind raced with all the reasons this was impossible: the age gap, my friend, the fact that she had a history, a life that didn't include me. But none of that mattered when she was this close. I wanted to tell her to stop, to take a step back, but my body betrayed me, leaning in instead. Her fingers brushed against mine as she moved past the counter, and I almost swore I felt sparks. A sharp pang of jealousy stabbed me out of nowhere. I wanted her to look only at me, to not be reminded that she had lived a life without me. "I can't," I murmured, words trailing into silence. "You can," she said softly, eyes glinting with something I couldn't name. Fear, desire, maybe both. She leaned closer, the faint scent of her perfume overwhelming, making it impossible to think straight. My heart pounded, my hands trembled. We stopped, barely an inch apart, our breaths mingling. Every instinct screamed forward, yet the weight of everything holding us back pressed equally hard. Her lips parted, just slightly, and I could see the hesitation in her eyes, mirrored perfectly in mine. The room felt impossibly small, the seconds stretching into infinity. And then, there was a sudden sound from the hallway, a creak in the floorboards, like someone was coming. I tensed. She froze too, and the moment, fragile and raw, shattered. Her hand lingered near mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary, and I wanted to close the distance, to finally let go of everything. But we didn't. Not yet. Everything hung suspended. Desire, fear, guilt, and longing, all tangled in a single, unbearable pause. And in that moment, I knew that something was about to happen that neither of us could ever take back. I thought the tension between us was ours alone to navigate, a private storm we could manage. I was wrong. The sound came from the doorway, her voice, but not hers. A low laugh, sharp and familiar. My chest tightened, stomach dropping. She froze. I turned, heart hammering, and saw him, my friend, her son, leaning against the frame of the open door, his phone in hand, eyes wide, as if he had just stepped into something he hadn't meant to see. Hey," he said, uncertain, confused. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her hand hovered near mine for a split second before she pulled back, suddenly stiff and deliberate. The warmth between us vanished like smoke, leaving a cold, sharp edge. I felt a surge of guilt and panic. It's not. My words stumbled over themselves, but what could I even say? My friend swallowed hard, looking between us, confusion and hurt twisting his features. I didn't mean to interrupt," he said finally, but the tension was palpable. Every heartbeat felt like it would explode. She turned toward him, composed, but I could see the tremor in her hands. "It's fine," she said carefully, but her voice carried an undertone that made me shiver. Something unspoken, dangerous, and utterly magnetic lingered in the space between us. Once he left, after an awkward, lingering goodbye, the air seemed to grow heavier. We were both silent, breathing unevenly. My mind raced, and I noticed her jaw tight, her hands clasped in front of her as if holding herself together. "I didn't expect him," I started, then stopped. Words were useless. How could I explain this? Explain what had been building between us for weeks, without sounding like a fool, or worse, like a predator. Her gaze met mine, steady now, but vulnerable. "You should go," she said softly. Her tone wasn't commanding. It was a plea, wrapped in guilt and desire all at once. I don't want to," I admitted, my voice lower than I intended. I wanted to close the distance, to tell her that none of this mattered except that we wanted each other. But the reality of the intrusion pressed down on me. She exhaled slowly, shoulders slumping slightly. "I know." Her eyes flicked to the hallway again, then back to me. "But it can't happen like this. Not now. Not like this." Her words weren't a rejection. They were a warning, and the ache of desire they carried nearly broke me. I reached for her hand again, tentatively, almost desperate. Her fingers brushed mine, lingering just enough to ignite the fire we had barely contained. And then, just as quickly, she pulled away, stepping back. We stood there, suspended in a moment that was impossible to untangle. I wanted to say everything, to make a bold move, but I knew we weren't safe. Not emotionally, not practically. And yet, despite the intrusion, the heartbreak, the guilt, it only made the pull between us stronger, more impossible to ignore. Her eyes searched mine, fierce and tender at the same time. "Are you going to leave?" And I didn't know if I could. The room was smaller than it had ever felt, charged with every unspoken word, every lingering glance, every stolen moment that had led to this. I stood a few steps away from her, but it felt like a chasm. My hands itched to reach for her, my chest tight with every beat. "I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter," I blurted out, my voice shaking. "I don't care about the risks. I don't care about what's right or wrong. I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tremor in my words. "I just want you." Her breath hitched, subtle but enough to make my heart skip. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the tension hang between us, palpable, impossible to ignore. When she opened them again, they were soft, vulnerable, the walls she had built around herself slipping. "I know," she whispered, barely audible. "I want this too more than I should. But the guilt," she bit her lower lip, and I wanted to kiss it, wanted to tell her that the world outside didn't matter when we were here. I stepped closer, ignoring everything except her, feeling the heat of her presence fill the space. "Then let's not think about it. Just be here, right now." Her fingers trembled as she reached for mine. The touch was light, almost accidental, but it sent fire straight to my chest. Our eyes locked, and everything, years of restraint, longing, secrecy, seemed to collapse into that single moment. "I'm scared," she admitted softly. Not a defense, not a hesitation. Just the truth, raw and unfiltered. "Me too," I said. My hands hovered over hers, unsure, trembling. But she didn't pull away. She let me bridge the distance, let me brush my thumb against hers, letting the contact speak what neither of us could fully say. The world outside the walls, the judgments, the risks, the guilt, faded, leaving just us. And in that fragile, fleeting space, everything else seemed irrelevant. Her chest rose and fell, close enough that I could feel it against mine. My pulse raced, my thoughts scattered, but I didn't pull back. Not this time. A soft knock echoed from the hallway. The reminder that life, as messy and complicated as it was, waited beyond this room. We flinched, almost instinctively, and the tension shifted. Fear mixed with desire, hesitation with certainty. She let out a shaky laugh, almost breaking the spell, but her hand stayed in mine. This is insane," she said. "Yes," I admitted. "But it feels like it's real." "Right." Her lips curved in a small, tender smile, the kind that made my chest ache. Yes, real. For a moment, we just stood there, fingers intertwined, breathing in the shared reality that we both wanted, even if the world outside threatened to tear it away. And in that moment, the decision was made. Not clean, not easy, but ours. And yet, as the shadows stretched along the walls and the distant hum of the street seeped through the windows, a single thought lingered. We had crossed a line, and what came next was uncertain. But whatever it was, we were facing it together. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, painting the room in muted gold. I woke first, careful not to move too quickly, afraid I'd break the fragile balance of the night before. She was still asleep, curled on the sofa, a light throw draped over her shoulders. Even in sleep, she seemed impossibly alive, impossibly present. I swallowed, my chest tight, and let myself linger in the moment. Last night had been reckless, messy, full of confession and desire, but also honest. The tension, the longing, the guilt, all had collided, and somehow, we had survived it. Somehow, we had made it real. She stirred, stretching slightly, eyes fluttering open. When she saw me, a small, almost shy smile curved her lips. "Morning," she whispered. Her voice was still husky from sleep, carrying the echo of all the nights we hadn't dared speak. "Morning," I replied, careful, soft. I wanted to reach out, to brush a stray strand of hair from her face, but paused, letting her set the pace. We sat there, side by side, hands occasionally brushing, sharing small, intimate silences. No words were necessary, the quiet spoke volumes. We had crossed the impossible, survived the intrusion, the guilt, the fear. And now, the world outside existed, but it didn't feel as sharp, as dangerous, as it had before. "I didn't think this, us, could happen," she said finally, voice trembling just a little. "But it did. And it feels like it was meant to, even if the timing is all wrong." I nodded, swallowing hard. "I don't know what comes next," I admitted. "I just know I want to be with you." Somehow, her eyes glimmered, and she reached for my hand, holding it like an anchor. "Somehow," she echoed. "That's all we have to start with. Somehow, we'll figure it out. Together." We sat like that for a long moment, letting the warmth of each other's presence fill the quiet corners of the room. Outside, life moved on. No one knew, no one judged, at least not yet. Here, in this small world we carved out, it was just us. Imperfect, messy, human. I noticed the subtle changes in her, the soft crease by her eye, the hint of a laugh line that deepened when she smiled at me. I realized I could spend a lifetime learning every detail, memorizing every nuance, and never tire of it. "I never imagined this," I said, voice low, more to myself than her. "You never know what life has waiting," she replied, brushing her fingers over mine once more. "But when it's right, you feel it. And you act." I smiled, leaning closer, letting the distance finally collapse. We didn't need to rush. The moment didn't have to end. It could linger, unspoken but understood. And as we sat together, fingers entwined, hearts still racing but grounded in something undeniable, I realized that maybe the risk, the mess, the taboo, all of it, was worth this. Worth her. Worth us. The world outside might still demand answers, might still challenge us, but for now, we had today. And sometimes, that was enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?